shall be revoked. Now, he is entitled to a pre-sentence investigation report. Is that correct? Okay, then I will be sure to order one.
The jury found a defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. When the court found Ksoo guilty, no one realized the jury might have just signed his death sentence. Just hours after he arrived at his new prison, insiders claimed things turned deadly. Apparently, ATK finally got their revenge. Let me break it down. When the hood comes to prison, there's talk right now that Ksoo's already been harmed in prison. And honestly, it wouldn't be a shock. The man's got enemies everywhere, and just about everyone's got a bone to pick with him. Ksoo got hit with that guilty verdict for first-degree murder in the 2020 shooting death of 23-year-old Charles Lil Buck McCormick Jr., and that conviction came with a mandatory life bid, no parole, no appeals that's going to stick, meaning he's facing decades, potentially the rest of his life, behind bars. The ripple effect of that conviction is already shaking up the prison system. The core of the story lies in the brutal reality of prison life, where loyalty and reputation are everything. Imagine being thrown into a concrete jungle, branded with the scarlet letter of guilt, knowing your own father has testified against you. That's the reality Ksoo is facing. His arrival wasn't just another inmate entering the system. It was a declaration of war. He's a walking target, a symbol of betrayal, and the prison is teeming with those eager to capitalize on his vulnerability. Let's rewind to the crime itself, the catalyst for this whole mess. Lil Buck McCormick, a young man with a life ahead of him, cut short by senseless violence. The circumstances surrounding the shooting have been dissected and debated, fueling the flames of the ongoing feud between ATK and rival factions, each side vying for dominance, each incident escalating the cycle of retribution. Now, Ksoo is paying the price, a pawn in a game far bigger than himself. But the real drama isn't just about the crime. It's about the fallout, the choices made under pressure, the compromises forged in desperation. His father's testimony. That's the seismic shift that ripped through the whole situation. Let me explain what that truly means to the street code. Family is everything. It's your bedrock, your shield, your support system. To betray that bond, to turn on your own flesh and blood, is the ultimate sin. It's a betrayal that echoes through the streets, carrying a weight of shame and condemnation. Let's dive into why his father made that choice. He's claiming some health issues. That's what he's telling the courts. I got some health issues. I got two. It's more than just wanting to see his kids, although that's undeniably part of it. He's facing a future where his body is failing, and the thought of spending his remaining days in a cell, separated from his younger children, is unbearable. It's a desperate gamble, a trade of his reputation for a chance at a future. He shared heartbreaking details in court, painting a picture of a man torn between two worlds. My 6-year-old son, he asked me to come to his football games, come take him fishing. He asked me, when am I going to come see him? When is he going to come see me? He's begging me, please, please come see me, Daddy. You want to teach me how to play the game, but don't know where I'm at. The raw emotion in those words speaks volumes. He's a father grappling with guilt, desperation, and the crushing weight of responsibility. The deal he accepted, 7 years and 6 months for betraying his own son, sounds light on paper, but it's a sentence carried with a lifetime of shame. And let's not forget the consequences outside the prison walls. He knows he's made enemies for life. Extremely hard. He's painted a target on his back, and there's no turning back. The streets don't forget, and the consequences will follow him long after he walks free. The psychological toll on Ksoo, however, is the most devastating aspect of this entire saga. Imagine the feeling of betrayal, the knowledge that the person who
picture than the one presented by multiple witnesses.
So if I can give a description of how I describe my brother, I would say that I call him fat, slew-footed, which we would say 2 left feet. I call him stocky and tallest. He's a giant to me.
That physical description could be a key part of the defense's strategy and a direct challenge of the prosecution's case. With several eyewitnesses, including Jacksonville police officers, describing the shooter as shorter and slimmer and around 5'8", the Robinson counsel questions how their client can be the shooter when
should have been your protector has turned against you. It's a wound that goes far deeper than any physical injury. He's not just facing a life sentence. He's facing a lifetime of shame and condemnation. Before he even stepped foot inside the prison gates, allegations surfaced claiming he was already being mistreated in the Duval County Jail. Claims of mental abuse, isolation in the psych ward with unstable inmates, and being denied contact with his legal team. If those conditions were real, picture how much worse things get in state prison, where oversight diminishes and inmates have more freedom to manipulate situations and settle scores. That isolation itself could be a tactic, a way to destabilize him before he even gets a chance to navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries inside the walls. Let's look at the broader context of prison dynamics in Florida. It's a brutal environment characterized by a complex hierarchy based on geography, race, and gang affiliations. An ATK member like Ksoo steps into a world where he's immediately categorized, judged, and forced to navigate treacherous relationships with various groups who see him as either an asset to be exploited or a liability to be eliminated. And the violence that fueled the feud between ATK and their rivals didn't just stay on the streets. It spilled over into the prison system, creating a volatile atmosphere ripe for retaliation. Multiple murders linked to the ongoing conflict, each act escalating the cycle of vengeance. Ksoo's conviction has only amplified the danger, making him a prime target for those seeking to settle old scores and assert dominance within the prison walls. Consider the case of King Vaughn, another high-profile inmate who faced similar challenges within the Florida prison system. Footage leaked online revealed numerous confrontations and altercations during his incarceration, illustrating the constant threat of violence and the lengths inmates go to protect themselves. There was the initial brawl, where guards had to use mace, followed by the shocking moment Vaughn slipped out of his handcuffs and landed a few licks. And let's not forget the time Vaughn was questioned about his safety concerns, requesting protective custody. "Chris, hey, got a problem with gay people." The desperation in his voice was palpable. He was willing to swallow his pride and portray himself as vulnerable just to survive the dangers of prison life. These incidents vividly illustrate what Ksoo is now walking into: a 24/7 danger zone where old beefs never die. Disrespect lingers for years, and a single misstep can trigger a violent confrontation. The case of Casanova offers another chilling parallel. While awaiting trial at Essex County Detention Center, Casanova became embroiled in a brutal series of fights with Ulysses Lugo, a figure linked to his own gang. The violence escalated to the point of razors being used to inflict devastating injuries. What's particularly relevant here is that Casanova had reportedly spoken out against his own gang, making him a target for retaliation. While Ksoo hasn't publicly denounced ATK, his father's testimony could be interpreted as a similar act of betrayal, making him equally vulnerable. Ultimately, Ksoo's story isn't just about a murder conviction. It's a tragic illustration of the complex and brutal realities of prison life, the devastating consequences of betrayal, and the enduring power of street code. It's a story about a young man caught in a web of violence and deceit, facing a future filled with uncertainty and danger. The courtroom was electric. You could practically taste the tension hanging in the air, thick as Florida humidity. This wasn't just another case. This was Ksoo sentenced, goodbye forever. A young man, barely a man really, facing a lifetime behind bars for a crime that seemed ripped from the pages of a drill rap song. But it wasn't just about the music. It was about a web of violence, betrayal, and the inescapable grip of street code. This story isn't just
the murder trial of Jacksonville rapper Hakeem Ksoo Robinson and his cousin Leroy Whitaker. It's one step closer to going to the jury. Closing arguments began this afternoon. Both men are charged in the 2020 shooting death of 23-year-old Charles Lil Buck McCormick Jr. Prosecutors say the motive involved a diss track McCormick created. News 4 Jax reporter Brianna Brownlee has been following this trial from the beginning. She's joining us now live outside the courthouse with the latest on this.
Yes, it was a day full of disruptions in the courtroom.
Just about a murder conviction. It's a brutal peek inside a world most of us can only imagine. A 24/7 danger zone where old beefs never die. Disrespect lingers for years, and a single misstep can trigger a violent confrontation. It's about family fractured, loyalty twisted, and a young man caught in a storm he never asked to be in. The story starts with the echoes of a feud, a bitter rivalry that simmered for too long, finally erupting in a moment of irreversible violence. It all began with a diss track, a lyrical jab that escalated into a physical confrontation. That was when things turned deadly. That was when Ksoo found himself facing a lifetime behind bars. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly words can turn into weapons, and how easily a life can be lost in the crossfire of gang warfare. And then there's Leroy Whitaker, aka Ksoo, facing a sentence that felt heavier than the steel bars that would soon enclose him. The air was suffocating as the jury filed in, their faces stoic, the weight of their decision poised to shatter the fragile hope that still clung to the defense's plea for mercy. It was a moment frozen in time, a visual representation of a life extinguished and a family irrevocably altered. Let's rewind a bit. To really understand this, you gotta understand the landscape. Jacksonville, Florida, a place where ambition clashes with desperation, and where loyalty is a currency more valuable than money. You gotta understand the unwritten rules, the code of the streets, and the consequences of breaking it. It's a world where respect is earned through intimidation, and where silence can be a death sentence. The death of Lil Buck wasn't just a crime. It was a symptom of a deeper illness, a society riddled with poverty, violence, and a lack of opportunity. Ksoo wasn't just a killer. He was a product of his environment, a young man caught in a system that failed him, a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. But does that excuse his actions? Does it lessen the pain of Lil Buck's family? That's the question that hangs heavy in the air. We're diving deep now. The events leading up to the shooting are a tangled mess of revenge plots, social media threats, and calculated moves. Ksoo and his crew, Dominique Barner and Scotty, weren't just reacting. They were meticulously planning, stalking Lil Buck, casing his house, meticulously gathering intel. It was a chilling display of premeditation, a stark contrast to the reckless abandon that often characterizes street violence. The source text is keen to point out that there's a complicated issue with the reliance on these rappers' lyrics as evidence in court. It's like trying to interpret a dream. You might grasp some of the meaning, but the full picture remains elusive. The defense argued, and rightly so, that prosecutors were turning creative expression into criminal acts. It's like they've got a double standard. One legal expert stated, they're holding rappers to a different set of rules than they apply to everyone else. How can you criminalize someone's artistry, their expression, their attempt to make sense of the world around them? Then there's Dominique Barner, aka Buddha, the man who flipped, who sang, who spilled all the details. A desperate plea for leniency, a willingness to betray his own to escape the long arm of the law. He was the key. He was the insider. He was the one who held all the secrets. Some might call him a rat. Others might see him as a survivor. But one thing's for sure, he changed the entire trajectory of this case. And what about Scotty? He got hit with burglary, assault, and home invasion robbery charges too. It wasn't just about the murder anymore. It was about the chaos that followed, the panicked flight, the desperate attempt to cover their tracks. Stealing pajamas from a stranger's house. That's how low it got. That's how desperate they were. The legal team fought hard, trying to dismantle the prosecution's case piece by piece. Julie Schlatt.
Today from a 2-hour delay because of witnesses and technical issues from the court causing audio issues during testimony as well as closing arguments. And in a surprising twist, someone from the Robinson family was banned from the courtroom because they were live streaming testimony. However, despite all this, closing arguments did happen, but this was after Hakeem Robinson's older sister took the stand to defend her baby brother.
Hell no.
This was the immediate reaction from Hakeem Robinson's older sister when she first saw the photo of the
Scotty's lawyer was relentless, attacking the credibility of the witnesses, painting Buddha as a liar and manipulator. She tried to create reasonable doubt, to plant seeds of uncertainty in the minds of the jurors. But the jury saw through the smoke and mirrors. They saw the evidence, heard the testimony, and reached a verdict. And when that verdict came down, it was a resounding declaration of guilt. 3.5 hours. That's all it took for 12 people to decide the fate of a young man's life. The defense's efforts to discredit the witnesses, and they put in serious work, boiled down to a fundamental question. Could these people be trusted? How do you weigh the testimony of someone who's already admitted to betraying their friends, who's already demonstrated a willingness to lie for their own benefit? The jury wrestled with that question, and ultimately, they decided to believe the prosecution's version of events. One crucial detail the source text emphasizes: the jury asked for a family tree. Imagine that, a visual aid to help them navigate the intricate web of relationships, the alliances, the betrayals, the vendettas. It's a testament to the complexity of this case, the sheer depth of the drama that unfolded within the courtroom. And now the aftermath. The sentences handed down. Mandatory life sentences under Florida law. A crushing blow to any glimmer of hope that remained. Appeals are inevitable. Legal challenges will be launched. But the reality is stark. Ksoo is going away for a very long time. But this isn't just about Ksoo or Lil Buck. It's a reflection of a systemic problem. It's about a community struggling with poverty, violence, and a lack of opportunity. It's about young men trapped in a cycle of despair, resorting to violence as a means of survival. And as one legal expert highlighted, the prosecution's reliance on rap lyrics as evidence raises serious ethical questions. It's a slippery slope, they warned. Where do you draw the line between artistic expression and criminal intent? The source text urges caution, a careful consideration of the potential for abuse. But here's the thing, and this is critical: Ksoo's journey didn't happen in a vacuum. He was a product of his environment. His actions were shaped by his upbringing, his experiences, the choices he made along the way. Does that excuse his actions? Absolutely not. But it does provide a context, a deeper understanding of the factors that contributed to his downfall. The case also throws a spotlight on the pervasive influence of social media, the ease with which threats and insults can be hurled across the digital realm. Those digital taunts, those fleeting moments of online bravado, can quickly escalate into real-world violence. It's a dangerous trend, a reminder of the potential for harm lurking behind the screens. The aftermath of Ksoo's sentencing is likely to be fraught with turmoil. His family will grieve, his friends will mourn, and the community will grapple with the loss of yet another young man taken too soon. And as the legal appeals process unfolds, the questions surrounding this case will continue to be debated and scrutinized. The system will work its course, but the scars left behind will linger for years to come. As the source text pointedly puts it, Ksoo sentenced, goodbye forever. A chilling phrase, a stark reminder of the finality of the situation. It's more than a headline. It's a symbol of a lost future, a shattered dream. A reminder that a single moment of bad judgment can have irreversible consequences. The source text makes a powerful observation, that the prosecution's case hinged on the credibility of witnesses who were willing to testify against their former associates. This highlights a crucial element of the legal process, the reliance on human testimony, which is inherently fallible and subject to bias. The jury had to weigh the motivations and potential for deception of these witnesses, a task that demanded careful scrutiny and nuanced judgment. And then, there's the undeniable
alleged gunman in the 2020 killing of Charles McCormick, and was questioned if it was her younger brother. In court Wednesday, even now, years later, with her brother on trial accused of that murder, she testified there's no way that's him.
He's approximately 5'8" to 5'10", black male.
Tim Graham is now a retired JSO officer, but 5 years ago, on the day of the shooting, he was one of the officers chasing the shooter and gave the description of 5'8" and a bit athletic.
Did you see this person jump a couple of fences?
Absolutely.
He was able to evade Officer Prater?
And me.
Robinson's sister didn't hold back when describing her brother, painting a different picture.
Truth that this case is about more than just one murder. It's about a community desperately seeking solutions to the pervasive issues of poverty, violence, and a lack of opportunity. It's a call for systemic change, a plea for a brighter future for the young men who are too often caught in the crosshairs of the streets. It's a challenge to the entire system, a demand for a more equitable and just society. The narrative isn't closed. It's a persistent echo in the streets of Jacksonville. A persistent echo in the streets of Jacksonville. It's a reminder that this case, this sentence, isn't a full stop. It's more like a question mark hanging over a community, grappling with a complex web of issues that go far beyond a single act of violence. Think about it. How many of these stories do we see playing out, right? Young men caught in a cycle of disadvantage, where opportunity seems like a distant dream and the streets offer a warped sense of belonging. It's a brutal reality, and Ksoo's sentence, while a moment of legal closure for some, doesn't erase the systemic failures that led him down this path. The whispers on the corners aren't about celebration. They're about resignation, about a familiar despair. They're about wondering, what next? Who's next? Because the roots of this tragedy are sunk deep into the soil of poverty, neglect, and a broken promise of a better life. To understand what happened here, you gotta look beyond the courtroom drama, beyond the legal proceedings, and into the lives of the people who are living these stories every single day. Let's break down what we're dealing with. It's not just about the murder itself. It's about the lack of viable alternatives. When kids grow up surrounded by violence, when their schools are underfunded, when their families are struggling to make ends meet, what choices do they really have? The streets offer a sense of community, a source of income, and a feeling of power, even if it's built on a foundation of fear and intimidation. It's a warped sense of belonging, sure, but for some, it's all they've ever known. And that's where the question of responsibility comes into play. Sure, Ksoo made choices that led to this moment, but who's responsible for creating the environment that made those choices seem almost inevitable? It's a question that demands a much wider conversation, a conversation that extends beyond the legal system and into the realm of social responsibility. It's a challenge to the adults in the room, the policymakers, the community leaders, everyone who has the power to shape the lives of these young men. Think about the witnesses, too. The narrative highlights their critical role, and it's not a simple one. These are people who were once part of that same world, bound by loyalty and fear. To come forward, to testify against former associates, takes incredible courage. It means risking their own safety, betraying a code of silence, and facing the potential for retaliation. And even when they do speak out, their testimony is often met with skepticism, with accusations of bias and ulterior motives. They're just trying to save their own skin. People will say. They're snitching. But what choice did they have? Were they supposed to stand by and watch as injustice prevailed? The source text is brutal in its honesty about the precarious position of these witnesses, understanding that their motivations are complex and their credibility is often questioned. It's a system built on inherent fallibility, a system where truth is often obscured by loyalty and fear. And the jury, faced with this messy, imperfect reality, had to sift through the layers of bias and suspicion to arrive at a verdict. The weight of that responsibility, the moral complexity of the situation, it's heavy. It's a reminder that justice isn't always black and white. It's often a murky shade of gray, a compromise between competing interests, a balancing act between punishment and rehabilitation. And that's why the source text emphasizes the need for nuanced judgment, a willingness to look beyond the surface and understand the underlying.
He's around 6'3".
And keep in mind, shooter doesn't stop, say measure me. He's running and gunning.
The state argued that size descriptions may have varied because the shooter was in motion and it was a chaotic scene. During closing arguments, the state addressed the height and weight concerns, saying some witnesses didn't give the exact measurements because it was a quick, intense situation, adding that Robinson may have gained weight since the
factors that contributed to this tragedy. Because let's be real, Ksoo's sentence isn't a solution. It's a consequence. It's a moment of closure for the victim's family, a symbolic victory for the legal system. But it doesn't address the root causes of the violence. It doesn't create opportunities for young men who are struggling to escape the cycle of poverty and despair. It doesn't suddenly erase the deep-seated distrust of the system that pervades these communities. So what now? What do we do with this moment of closure? Do we simply move on, satisfied that justice has been served? Or do we use it as an opportunity to examine our own complicity in this tragedy, to acknowledge the systemic failures that have brought us here? Do we commit to creating a society where every young person has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their zip code or their family's income? That's the real challenge, I ascends it. It's easy to point fingers, to assign blame. It's easy to celebrate a conviction and move on. But the hard work lies in dismantling the systems that perpetuate inequality, in creating opportunities for those who have been left behind, in fostering a sense of hope and possibility for the future. The source text makes it clear. This case is more than just one murder. It's a symptom of a deeper malaise, a reflection of a society that has failed to live up to its promise of justice and opportunity for all. And that's why the narrative isn't closed. It's a persistent echo in the streets of Jacksonville, a constant reminder of the work that remains to be done. It's a plea, really. A plea for systemic change, a demand for a more equitable and just society. It's a challenge to all of us, a call to action, because the future of these young men, the future of these communities, depends on it. It's about creating a Jacksonville, a nation, where everyone has a chance to succeed, where violence is replaced with opportunity, and where hope shines brighter than despair. Think about it. What would it take to break that cycle? What programs would make a difference? More after-school activities? Job training initiatives? Increased funding for schools? Mentorship programs? Community centers? It's not about throwing money at the problem. It's about investing in people, about creating opportunities, about fostering a sense of hope and possibility. It's about creating an environment where young men like Ksoo, before he made those fateful choices, had alternatives. A place where their talents were nurtured, their potential was realized, and their dreams weren't crushed by the weight of poverty and despair. It's about creating a Jacksonville where every child feels valued, supported, and empowered to reach their full potential. The source text underlines the inherent fragility of this ecosystem. These communities are constantly teetering on the brink, vulnerable to the slightest push. One tragedy, one setback, and the whole thing can unravel. And that's why it's so important to invest in prevention, to address the root causes of violence before they manifest in acts of desperation. And that requires a shift in perspective. It requires us to see these young men not as statistics or as criminals, but as individuals with hopes, dreams, and potential. It requires us to recognize their humanity, to empathize with their struggles, and to invest in their future. This isn't just about sentencing one person. It's about sentencing a system that has failed to provide opportunities for so many. A system that perpetuates cycles of poverty and violence. A system that needs to be radically transformed if we want to create a better future for the next generation. The goodbye forever isn't just a finality for Ksoo. It's a potential farewell to a broken system that demands a complete overhaul. The echoes in Jacksonville aren't just sounds of loss. They're calls for a revolution in how we approach justice and opportunity. The echoes in Jacksonville aren't just sounds of loss. They're calls for a revolution in how we approach justice and opportunity.
So, understanding that we may have a recording, we could have had photographs just like this for this jury to see his exact size on that day.
Correct.
But you chose not to take photos.
With respect to Dominic Barner, the tattoos that he had at that date and time were the reason he was photographed.
Isn't the first photo of him with a shirt on?
Yes, they do overall photos.
Staying on the topic that we were on, September of 2020 was it? You first meet Mr. Robinson?
That's correct.
You're with Detective Dishman, your colleague?
Yes.
Never met him in person before?
Yes, sir.
Had spent months investigating this case, getting the descriptions of a shooter that was 5'5", 5'8", 5'9".
Sustained.
So, officer, there's CAD notes in this case, right? Call action detail notes.
Yes.
You've collected those, you've reviewed those.
Yes.
And your colleagues, as they were under the stress of the moment, were calling out over the radio the height and the weight of the person that they saw, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't just one. It wasn't just Officer Collins. There was another officer, Graham, right?
I vaguely remember, yes.
They both gave descriptions of the person that them as seasoned officers saw with their own eyes, right?
Yes.